What is up, my dashing dudes? I am the Hans TV. Do you want to know what happens when you're a douche to an elderly person that somebody was being kind to? Let's find out about that and many more in today's episode of r/MaliciousCompliance. Our first story for the day comes from Stranded MDK, Mom's Victory in the War Between Sexes with My Dad. First time poster here. I can't say it was intentionally malicious on my part, as I was just following orders from my dad, but it definitely was on my mother's part. I had the dubious honor of being the conveyance of said malicious compliance in the mom/dad wars of Who Knows Best. This happened many decades ago as well, so you have context. I have a problem with food textures. I don't know why. I'm the only one in my family that seems to have this. But things that have certain textures trigger my gag reflex. When I was little, mushrooms, fish, tofu, and tomatoes would all do this. My parents and siblings don't really have this feature, just me. But the one thing I've never been able to get though is boiled peeled tomatoes. I was homeschooled, so my mom spent all day with me, every day. She figured out this texture thing really quickly. My dad worked outside of the house, so he did not, and he thought he was all that and more while I was a kid. This event was part of what helped him to learn better and be a bit more humble. Mom had this awesome dish that we all loved, a 5-bean soup, which had boiled tomatoes in the recipe, but she would make sure I didn't get any tomatoes in my soup. The flavor was great, but the texture was not good for my ability to keep the food down, so I didn't have to eat them. My dad was an only child and was very self-centered at this time in his life. He's much better now, even sat us all down and apologized for this stuff a few years ago. And he thought all of this texture stuff was just in my head. My sister could eat this stuff just fine, so it must just be in my head, right? One day, my mom decided to make that awesome 5-bean soup again. I was 7, and Mom let my sister and I help her to make it. We all had a blast that day. When it was all done, Dad walked in right about 5:30, and we sat straight down to dinner. Now, of note here is that Dad did not take off his tailored suit, tie, or his white shirt because of some meeting he had to attend to after dinner. Dad helped to serve us the soup, and he made sure we all got at least one boiled peeled tomato. I got 2, against Mom's warnings in the kitchen that I couldn't eat them. I finished all of the soup except the tomatoes. The family rule was that you had to at least eat one of everything you made, and you couldn't leave the table until you did that. Dad said I had to eat 1 tomato. I said I couldn't. Dad replied, "Just eat it." "I can't, Daddy." "Son, eat the tomato. It's the only thing left." "Daddy, I can't. It's nasty and it makes me throw up." Mom interjected, "Honey, it does." Dad replied, "It's just in his head." Cue my mom's malicious compliance. Mom just got this little evil grin on her face. "Okay, hun." I saw it, but Dad did not as he was facing me, upset that I was not immediately obeying him. But Mom knew what was coming. Dad glared at me. "Eat your tomato." I started to cry. "Daddy, I can't." "Eat it right now." At that moment, Mom couldn't hide it anymore. A look of both pity for me and utter satisfaction for my dad and her imminent victory passed across her face at the same time. She knew what was about to happen. So, I pierced that peeled, vile fruit/vegetable monstrosity on my plate and shoved it in my mouth. And due to the exchange of words, he and I were facing each other. I doubt I need to explain what happened next. As Mom stood up and headed to get some towels, my dad looked up at her with utter shock. She was laughing, and with a look of total satisfaction, she looked at my dad and said, "He told you and I told you. Maybe you'll listen to me next time when I try to tell you something. You don't always know better." Then she went to grab a towel and clean me up. Dad got to handle himself. Dad never contradicted Mom about our food again and learned an important lesson in humility that night. Oh, and neither Dad, his food, nor his clothes made it that night either. Mom won, hands down. Our next story comes from Mrs. Pasta 2014. Moving offices? Management decides we slowly pack up our things during the day instead of giving us free time to do it? With pleasure. My whole office is relocating to a new building as of this Monday. We've known about it for a few months, but didn't have a solid move-in day until about 2 weeks ago. When management announced the move, we were all happy. When they announced the day, it was even better. Then we asked, how many boxes will we each get to pack our stuff? How much time will we have on Friday/Monday to pack and move? Management responded with complete disbelief. We were told to pack on our own time, find boxes from office supply deliveries or on our own, and take our stuff with us Friday to bring it to the new place Monday morning. Now, I can appreciate not wanting to waste time, but we have a multi-suite office with break rooms and office supplies, small furniture, computers, etc. I'm almost guaranteed to mess something up on this computer if I start unplugging at random. Eventually, management scheduled our RT group from HQ and 1 to 2 movers to get the computers and chairs, but everything else was on us. We asked management as a group at the beginning of the week if we could just have 2 hours at the end of the day, Thursday or Friday, to pack everything and be done with it. They say, just slowly pack up your things in the office throughout the day. So, we did. 3 or 4 people go pack up the break room at the same time on Thursday. Takes extra long because we don't have extra boxes for the supplies and food in there, and then all those people were not at their desks for probably an hour. Then the fridge needs to be cleaned out. Same thing, plus we filled the trash cans with the unwanted food and supplies and didn't accommodate for that. No, the cleaners won't be coming this weekend. Now, someone has to take all the trash to the dumpster and probably will need to on Friday too. No idea who will be sweeping or vacuuming. We start taking down our papers from our cubicle walls on Thursday too, and it's noisy and distracting for others. Chit-chat starts due to all the noise. We end up spending the majority of the day trying to pack because it was so disorganized and distracting. No work got done. Friday morning, we all come in and have to unpack some of the boxes to access our files, the coffee machine, paper towels, all sorts of stupid stuff. My 5-minute coffee break turns into 15 just because I have to refill the coffee maker with water and heat it. Here I am on Friday around 10 a.m., wasting more time unpacking and repacking files at my desk. No one is working, they packed the printer up. We literally aren't getting anything done and don't seem to have in the past 2 days. Now I'd like to ask my manager, was this really better than giving us 2 hours to pack? This next story comes from TIE Fighter 84. All communication with other outside vendors must go through you? You got it. This is actually my wife's incident, but at the time it started, I told her it was going to be a great story for me to tell on here one day. Background: my wife works for a catering company as a director, and they are contracted to a museum that puts on both internal and external events. This is a new contract, so there's been a large amount of tension as the staff for the museum wants to make sure they are the top dogs and will do anything to blame things on new catering team. E.g., she once sat through a 2-hour meeting where they got yelled at because the flowers didn't look good on the table, as if that is somehow the caterer's responsibility. A large function of her job is make the diagrams. It essentially tells the event staff, museum, and the placement crew, another vendor, what kinds of tables, how big they are, how many chairs, buffet tables, etc., and where they go. Well, my wife has been doing this for almost a decade, so she is very versed in not just catering, but also how events are run. So when she completes diagrams, she sends them out to everyone, and the placement crew would direct any questions to her. It wasn't perfect, but it was fairly efficient. Well, the museum event staff did not like that there was someone there who knows more than them. So, one day, an email goes out to everyone stating that catering is no longer to speak to the placement crew. All communication must go through event staff. At some facilities where the event staff makes diagrams themselves, which should be their job all along, that would work. But in this setup, with catering making them, it would create a game of telephone and communication could get lost. Cue the MC. The head of the placement crew comes up to my wife and has a question about the diagram. She replies, "I'm sorry, but I'm under orders to not speak with you regarding the diagram. All questions must go through event staff." He understands right away and smiles. Over the next week, for just one event with 200 people, not a lot for her industry, there occurred no less than 50 email correspondences asking for clarifications on table size, chair numbers, etc. Finally, after 3 weeks of the madness, a simple email comes out. Catering and placement team, work out all communications with yourselves. I was so proud of her. TLDR. One person, thinking they're better than someone else, learns the true value of time in answering silly emails. Our next story comes from Bondage Victim. Well, you can't say you didn't know where to find me. So, this happened about 3 years ago. It's more accidental malicious compliance, but we will see how you guys find it. So, for context, I was working in the complaints department of a debt management company in the UK. We had over 800 employees, but it was kinda ran like a mom and pop store in terms of its mentality. So, everyone did really odd jobs as well as their designated roles. So, To the compliance part. The company spent a fair bit of money on this fancy new intranet system. They wanted every member of staff to have a profile on this to help build relationships internally, and this included your location in the building. Now, the complaints team never dealt face-to-face with employees. Whenever we got complaints come through the phones, we'd get the call transferred to us and take care of everything from there. No one ever came to us, met us, or needed to find us. Our office could have been in another country and no one would be any the wiser, nor would it have impacted anything. I didn't bother filling in my profile as a result. It was fiddly and not very intuitive. Would have taken me 30 minutes to do, and frankly, when trying to help people in debt, I'd rather spend that time helping someone than filling out a silly form for no reason. Plus, we'd moved location in the building 3 times in the last 6 months, so why put my location knowing I'd have to just update it a few weeks later when we move again? Management asked me a few times to update it, and each time I explained it was a bit of a waste of my time to update the details given no one ever needs to come find me, and I'd rather help our customers. Eventually, after a few weeks of this, they basically just told me to do it. No exceptions. Okay, fair enough. If you want me to do it so badly, I'll put my location on my profile. So, being a petty person, I updated my location to Evergreen Building, 2nd floor, turn left at the stairs, go through the double doors and walk for 7 meters, table number 5 perpendicular to the window, north facing, opposite Sandra between the hours of 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., big chair, and then added the longitude and latitude coordinates. I thought it was pretty funny, and it was probably the most accurate location on the entire intranet. Well, 4 weeks later, the company were doing some major updates to the intranet over the weekend for some project they were doing. From what I understand, the update included a patch/code that would prevent people from entering too many letter characters into their personal profile fields. Given there were 800 plus employees, they didn't want too much info clogging up the systems. Problem was, the update would crash or break every time they tried to implement it because there was already a profile that didn't mesh with the new rules. My profile. They had to call out somebody externally from the company they leased the intranet software from to make a manual change to my profile details so they could finish this important update, costing the company thousands in emergency call-out fees. Management brought it to my attention and admitted that whilst they could see I was only trying to be funny, to just not put my location there in the future given how much it costs. My response? Why didn't they just ask me to edit my profile rather than calling out someone from the software company? Clearly, you knew where to find me. Our final story from the day comes from Friday the 13th. Get angry when I'm being kind to an elderly couple? Prepare to wait in line until hell freezes over. On mobile, apologies in advance for formatting, etc. Just happened a few days ago. On the way to vacation with the family. The terminal agent calls for boarding. We get in line, my wife, 13-year-old daughter, 16-year-old son, and myself. We're somewhat near the front of the line and it quickly grows to a couple hundred people. I see an elderly couple. Woman was using a cane and both were slow moving, but they apparently didn't want to board during the assisted boarding time. I leaned out as they walked near me and asked if they would like to take our place in line. They looked a little surprised, but happily accepted. As I was helping them into the line, I hear some guy about 5 people back, sighing and making comments under his breath. I was just about to leave the line and head to the back with my son when the couple behind us insisted we stayed. I told them it was no problem for us to go to the back, but they weren't having it. The sighing douche overheard our conversation and decided to interject. If he wants to leave, let him. Otherwise, he may as well let all the other old people cut in line. I look at this little toad, not even as big as my 13-year-old daughter. Images of me tossing him and his festering Napoleon complex into a trash can are dancing in my mind. Instead, I decided to give him what he asked for. I sent my son back in the line to find any elderly people who were behind us. In a minute, he returned with a lovely couple, about 70. They slipped right into line. A moment later, he found 2 women traveling together, right into line. The couple behind us were almost in tears, not sure if from laughter or just enjoyed watching a teen escort elderly people towards the front of the line. Napoleon Complex is having a silent tantrum as the line is going slowly, even without the old line cutters. He walks from the line, complains to the agent, and boards immediately. Squeaky Wheel got his grease after all. It took about 10 minutes for us to go through boarding check and enter the plane. It was 2 rows of 3 seats on that plane. As we near our row number, I realized my wife is supposed to sit opposite me, in the same row as Napoleon Complex. I called an audible, and she sat with the kids while I took the aisle seat with Napoleon Complex. He looked like he was going to pee his pants and just stared out the window. I made sure it was the most uncomfortable 5-hour flight of his life. Strange how bullies never shut up until they're afraid. Edit. Thanks for the silver and gold, kind, mysterious strangers. I will pay it forward to the very best of my abilities. Edit 2. I didn't expect this to blow up like this, and I definitely didn't expect to have my welcome to 2019 moment while on vacation. To all the people offended and calling me a bully, I don't even know what to say. I hope you meet people that care about the elderly when you are older and could use a hand instead of people concerned about their carry-on luggage. I apologize in advance for anyone offended by short jokes, my blatant misogyny for allowing women into the line, my poor grammar, and interchangeable use of British and American spelling of words. Enjoy your summer, everyone! Alright, my dashing dudes, that is going to do it for today's episode of r/malicious-compliance. If you liked any of the stories, they'll be linked in the description as always, and if you liked what I did, go ahead and leave a like, a sub, and drop a comment down below with what you'd like to see me read next. But with that being said, I'll see you in the next video.